Let's talk Granit Xhaka, because he's posted on an Instagram story, thank you Gunners, with a list of his honours. He included 2 Community Shields and 2 FA Cups in there. Forget he wasn't there for the 2 before that, but yeah, anyway. It looks like he's off, and it looks like he's going to get his sort of goodbye at the Emirates today. I think if you go back a few years, I don't think anyone expected or would have expected us to feel, or the fan base to feel, actually probably quite sad about him leaving. A couple of years ago, I don't think that would have been the feeling. I think when he signed that contract extension in 2021, it was met with, why are we signing one for longer? But very different story now, Lee.
Yeah, it is, and I'm disappointed in his game, because I still think he could do a job for Arsenal, as Julian said earlier on. But for me, what a turnaround, because he's going to get a fantastic reception today of the back of what he's done in the last couple of years. And this is what I think, the Granit Xhaka story is a fantastic story, because it pitfies everything you say about football, like someone that comes in and changes the opinion of everybody. And that's what football's great. He has changed the opinion of most Arsenal fans. Not all Arsenal fans, but the majority of them. And I think, like, the one thing that will make me stay to the end now is Granit Xhaka.
Really? Wow. You too?
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with Lee on this one. But for me, he's one of the few players I can think of that I have changed my opinion on so dramatically, because I really didn't like him. I didn't have any time for him. I always acknowledged and respected that he put effort in, but I just thought his skill levels, his temperament, his attitude of risk, and he was reckless as far as I was concerned, that there was no coming back from it. And then, you know, that famous time when he went off the pitch and he told us where to go and he said what he thought of us, I thought there was absolutely no coming back from that whatsoever. I thought that was gone. And I've never known, in all the years I've been watching Arsenal, a player to be able to turn it around to that extent. And something I always remember was a Wenger quote after he got sent off for the first time. And he said, he's not a natural defender. And he was being played for so many years in a defensive position. And what I think the issue is, in hindsight, was so many managers played him out of position, because as soon as he was moved more forward, we saw what I consider to be the real Granit Xhaka. And I'm deeply disappointed that if he does go, because I think we could at least get another year out of him.
Well, how do you reflect, and ask you this as well, Robbie, on kind of the fans' reaction at the time to what happened with Granit Xhaka? I wasn't in that day, the Palace game. I was actually at the Villa game. Do you remember the 3-2? We went down to 10 men, Aubameyang scored the free kick. And actually, this rarely gets talked about, but he didn't get a good send-off that game when he came off. He was subbed off. And there were sort of some moans and groans from the Arsenal fans, you know, what are you walking off the pitch for? We need a goal, you know, hurry up, blah, blah, blah. And he sort of trudged off the pitch a little bit. And it kind of started there. It wasn't just the Palace game. It'd been building a little bit. And then you get the situation that happened at Palace, and the Arsenal fans, you know, weren't happy. And I can understand both sides. I think as time's gone on, Arsenal fans have been kind of very criticised for the way they reacted to that moment. But I think on both sides it wasn't great.
I was at the game, right, and I remember I used to feel that Granit Xhaka was always being made a scapegoat. He don't get me wrong, he had not performed for a very long time, sending offs that, you know, always rash. And I always used to ask, what is his best position, right? I always used to ask that question, right? Now, that game, I remember his number went up and the reaction of the crowd was horrible. I ain't gonna lie, I felt embarrassed, like, hearing fans go, yeah, boo, get off, like our own player. And he hadn't played particularly bad in that game. He was being made a scapegoat for the fact that we were losing that game, right? And that's what he reacted to. If you used to go back and watch that game, that's what he reacted to. He didn't, so it's almost like he went, yeah, blame me, yeah, it's always me. And then, but then it's the stuff that followed afterwards that I just felt that we need to, you know, all right, forget you for a minute, forget the crowd for a minute, they're wrong. Forget that, we understand you're upset, but get off the pitch, man, because we need to get a goal. Yeah. Deal with this. And I think it was the how long it took him to get off, and that sort of after reaction that then got certain fans, like I remember, like me, I was sympathising with him at first, but then I was sort of later on going, yo, get off, man, get off. Yeah. We need to get someone on, you know what I mean? And then after that, yeah, like you said, you thought his days was numbered at Arsenal, but what a turnaround. Mikel Arteta is the person I think is responsible for the turnaround. He came in when literally every fan said, get rid. He said, no, I'm keeping this guy. He's a leader. He's going to be important. And I'd heard from people within Arsenal that this guy's got real leadership qualities. You know what I mean? And then the last 2 seasons, a lot of people just give him credit for this season. He also was brilliant the previous season as well. He was one of our better players in that season.
He was good last year, yeah.
But this season, in a position that Mikel Arteta really found for him, he really excelled. One big thing about this season is discipline has been so good. Even last year, remember he got sent off at City, then we ended up getting battered. His discipline this year, he's not been sent off at all, has he?
No.
And he's had very few
Arsenal
he's had very few yellow cards.
No, that's unbelievable.
And I still think sometimes he's even been that Liverpool. Oh, it's Xhaka's fault because the way he reacted. You know what I mean? Like, come on, no, he's had a fantastic season. I'm kind of surprised when I heard that he was leaving because I was thinking, right, we're in the Champions League. He's an experienced player. We're going to need players like that. All right, you may not play every week, but I reckon what it's boiled down to is the fact that obviously he's getting on in age now. He's hit his 30s. Leverkusen are offering him, apparently they're the club he's going to go to. They're offering him a long-term contract. Arsenal probably weren't offering him that length, and he's probably thought, right, let me go and go to Leverkusen. Maybe he weren't going to start every week because he's always been a starter for Arsenal throughout his career. It makes sense as long as I see Declan Rice and Caicedo walking through that door. If I see players of that ilk walking through that door to replace him, I'm cool with it. If I don't, then I'm like, well, why let the guy go now when he's been good for us? He's just had his best season. Yeah. And in the Champions League and Premier League next season, his experience would be invaluable. Well, I'm surprised that we've let him go.
Let's analyse why he's been so impressive, because last season we started to see him get a little bit forward more, not quite as much as this year, but you started to see him higher up the pitch. This year he literally became our version of Ilkay Gundogan, not as good, but lots of goals, assists as well, scoring headers, scoring left foot, right foot, whatever it might be.
And you see him a real leader on the pitch.
And that's the big thing as well. And actually, I think we do this thing sometimes where we see Xhaka's getting forward lots. So this season everyone's praising how well he's done going forwards. The work he does to then get back next to Partey. Because
remember that tackle he made a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, brilliant.
You know, his energy levels, his fitness levels, unreal. Unreal. He's never injured as well, is he?
Never injured. And you see, like we line up with a 4-3-3, yes, it's Ødegaard, Partey, Xhaka, but they don't play as a midfield three. When we have the ball, Xhaka gets forward, Ødegaard moves wide. When we don't, Ødegaard actually moves up with Jesus, and it's a midfield two. And in modern day football, it can be very hard to dominate a game of football, especially without the ball, as just two midfielders. So the work that either Xhaka or Jorginho, Xhaka or Partey have done this season, for most of it at least, has been brilliant. And I just think Xhaka deserves immense credit for the amount of work he's put in that midfield this season. But I also think it's a bit of a wake-up call to us, how difficult it's going to be to replace him. How many players are complete midfielders? Now you have a 10, a 6, a left-sided 8, a creative 8, a wide creator. He does so many roles in one. That's why Declan Rice, for me, has to be the guy we bring in.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I noticed with Xhaka, he's just slightly limited with his attacking play at times. Sometimes he gets into that role, he hasn't got a quick enough bit of turn or the pace to go into it, but that's just going up a level to take you from where you are now to, and it's going to cost a lot of money to replace that, you know. I'll be really honest. I think he's been brilliant for us over the last couple of seasons. I think definitely in the top 3 this season of players of the year.
He's been absolutely fantastic.
And you know, it's surely going to be missed. One of the other things that I think is going to be missed, which does go under the radar, Arsenal have been always accused of being bullied over the years. Not with him in the team. When there's a bit of trouble or whatever, he's the first one in there, and people back down to him a lot, you know, because they know what he can handle himself and all that. I think he's going to be a big loss if we don't replace. Really, you know, if they are to let him go, I'm happy to let him go. Exactly what Robbie turns around and says. If Caicedo and Declan Rice.
Is that enough? I wanted 2 midfielders with Xhaka.
Yeah, so did I. I think it's got to be 2 of them and a free.
And there's even rumours that Partey might go as well.
Yeah.
So to me, there must be. There's some serious business. But remember, we got the Champions League next season, so I don't think we should be leaving ourselves light. But
we've left ourselves light in the midfield for the last 2 years.
To me, I can only think that it's got to be either Declan Rice and another, whether that be Caicedo, but another, a real, where they're saying, right, we can free up Xhaka's wages, because remember, he'd be on a good amount of wages. Xhaka,
that's a good
he
point.
must be on at least 100 plus.
I think he's on about 100.
Right, so they can free up those wages. Those wages would pay Caicedo easily.
Yeah.
Right, so that's what I'm thinking, is to free up. And listen, you get a young, fresher, better version of Xhaka in that system.
Yeah, that's
It could be
you've got to
fantastic.
improve it. I think we had to improve on the midfield this
Yeah, well,
year.
the alternative is they get Caicedo, they get Declan Rice, and then they get in the guy from City, Gundogan.
Or a Tillemans or someone like that.
Yeah.
I don't know
That's
about
what I would
Tillemans.
do.
Yeah, it's
I don't
Tielemans
think
as
we'll
well,
get
available
I mean,
on a free.
What I've seen of Tillemans the last few seasons, I haven't been overly impressed about. You talk about Xhaka's physical presence and the fact that people don't mess with him. When I've looked at Tillemans, he just doesn't seem to be in that mould. Yes, he's skillful, he's got a nice touch, but he doesn't
Great
seem...
shot on him.
Yeah, he's got a great shot, but Xhaka's got a great shot.
But I think,
but I
just
like
the same
action
way.
Xhaka like you
but
do.
it's a bit of a reverse argument you're using there, because you just spoke about how for the first more than 2 years, quite a few years, you weren't impressed with Xhaka. And in the last couple of seasons, you've been like, wow, that could be the same. That could easily be the same with
he's still got the
Tielemans.
physicality.
No, but hold on, with Tielemans, right? He's been excellent for Leicester up until recent times.
Yeah.
Right, he's been excellent for them. He
since
won
his
them the cup
contract.
final. He's put in great performance, and he's still young. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. I mean, our transfer daily's coming back soon, by the way, guys. As soon as the transfer window opens, I'm back with that every single day. And this year it's going to be really interesting, because I do think Arsenal will be looking to get business done early. Arsenal are looking at some big names, and they can do it. I mean, I saw today that they're going to be probably making about 150, 60 million from this season alone,
second,
Arsenal. Plus they're in the Champions League for next season, and no excuses for us not to go big this summer, and I think we will.
1-0. What a goal. It's Granit Xhaka as well. It's Granit Xhaka as well.
Turnaround story of
This is
Granit
exactly
Xhaka
what we needed.
ending with a goal. Could it be goodbye for him? It's a real question at the end of this game, which I'm sure we'll have
Good assist
a
by
full time.
Jesus. This is Xhaka's last game. I'm so happy it signs off with a goal.
Xhaka, 2 goals. This could
Granit
be a... We got Granit Xhaka.
You guys going to rate Xhaka's, time at Arsenal, because, you've got...
He's a legend.
7... Stop that, man. He's had 7 years. 7 years at Arsenal.
Legend.
I believe. He's had 5, I would say, very mediocre, up and down seasons.
Yep.
You know what I'm going to say?
But the last 2 years, he's been good. But what would you give?
Overall, I think he's been a force for good. But I would say that this is as good a time for him to leave as any.
Cross
For
comes in.
both. So in other words, what I'm saying, it's mutually
Ball's
beneficial
clear.
for
But
both
what
parties.
score would you give him out
He
of 10?
goes out, I'll give him a 7.
7.
Yeah,
7.
I would say 6 personally, though.
7.
5 is average, and the only reason
He's been good for us.
yeah, but 2 out of 7 years is mental. But I applaud the turnaround so much, because
a great pass from
I was
Ramsdale,
quite a
by
big
the way.
head. That was a great. He was right. That was a great pass from him. But because of the turnaround, such a big turnaround, I bump him up.
See, in those so-called
above
bad
average
years,
by
that
one.
shoot.
I
You're
don't know
saying,
why
I
he
don't
didn't
think
shoot
he's
there.
been quite that bad.
Another little chip
No,
pass.
he has.
into
He has.
the
There's been a lot of errors leading to goal. A lot of red
Remember when
cards.
he was making all those rash decisions, getting sent off and stuff
Yeah, that's
like
what I'm saying,
that?
yeah, the red cards,
But
yeah.
but even then, that was interspersed with some very good play from him. So
Lee?
I'll go 7.
I would say, I think before last season, I would have given him a 4. But I think
great pass.
because of where he's
Maybe.
come from and where he's at, I have to give him a 6. Sorry,
Yeah, that's what I think.
I think a 6. I think he's bumped himself up 2 levels. Now the goals, the discipline. He did the thing against Liverpool, but part of it was he stepped up for his team. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily mind. He was the only one when Arteta got pushed by De Bruyne. He stepped up. So I think a 6. I think a 7. That's recency bias. I don't think you can give him a 7 anyway, because he's had 7 years here, and 5 of them have been very, very poor, average at best.
Very poor.
I think they have been. Remember, and you know what it is?
Very poor.
I think, let me give my answer to that. I think when you look at it, right, this was the same time when we was meant to get who? Kante.
Yep.
And what did we get? We got Xhaka. Fine, not a
Yeah.
problem. Wenger wanted him or whatever. You've made that decision. You've got to see something similar, unfortunately, because it's the same thing like Nunes and Haaland. They get compared because they got brought in at the same season. So I just think that unfortunately,
Every man trusts him. Though,
they
which
do.
is-
But I just think unfortunately, it's a thing where look, we look at it and I say, great servant. I think he's always been, a ready.
So he's a great
available.
servant, but you only give him 6.
Yeah,
think 6 is
yeah.
fair.
But just because, what would you give?
A great servant isn't the same as a great player.
Great player. I don't think that you can. I think El Nenny's been a great servant, but I don't think he's a great player for Arsenal. So,
I don't even think El Neni thinks he's a great player.
Look, I think he's serviceable. So, I would give El Neni a 4. But he's not had enough time, I don't think, to be that kind of. So 4, whatever. But fine, whatever. For the role he's been, if I was talking about the role, I'll give him a 7 or 8. I think he's been a great cheerleader for the
If El
team.
Neni was to leave tomorrow, I'd give him a 6.
Yeah, he's
So that means,
For
just
El
by
Neni-
definition, you would have to give
But no,
Xhaka
for
a
El
7.
Neni's
Why
role,
by
because
definition you
No,
have
I
to
think
give
El Neni's got
Xhaka a
5.
7?
Because if we're saying that El Neni's a 6.
Sorry, let Lee finish.
Let me, because I think you can't compare the two anyway, because one's a role player and one's a starter. So for the role player that he is, I think you have to look at it a bit differently. So you give him a 6 for being a role player, or 5 for being a role player. But if it's a first teamer, he's not. You can't compare him to Xhaka. Xhaka's played way more games, been way more effective, had bigger roles in
Exactly,
the team.
but yet
different
you
price
give him.
tags as well from what they came in for. And I think
You
El
just said it
Nenny's-
yourself. He's been way more effective.
Yes,
So-
because he's a first team player. It doesn't mean he's been great.
No, I didn't say he's been great.
Mustafi was a first team player.
7 doesn't mean great, 7 means good, doesn't it?
No, but that's what I'm saying. I think he's averaged out to being just below good, so I'll give him a 6.
Yeah, if you populate the other players around it, you can't be that high. I think 7 is quite high, but that's your own opinion.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.